Well, less than half of Australians believe the government is sufficiently supporting recycling improvements, according to a recent study by the environmental foundation Planet Ark. Only 3 in 4 people say they are increasing recycling rates in their own home. Joining us live now is Planet Ark Chief Executive Rebecca Gilling. Rebecca, thanks so much for your time. It sounds like Australians have a real lack of confidence in the recycling systems we have in place in this country.
Yes, I think that's true, Ash. Certainly since China and other countries banned the import of Australian recycled materials, and we had to manage those things on shore, there was obviously a period of adjustment and trying to build the infrastructure in Australia to manage recycling. And there were lots of stories about recycling not, being collected but not actually being recycled. However, the facts of the matter, according to the National Waste Report, which is conducted every 2 years, that we are recycling about 60% of the materials that are collected. This is across all areas of waste. So it's not just the stuff that goes in your household bin, but it's also construction and demolition and commercial and industrial waste. Those are the 3 areas that are measured. In terms of household recycling, it is around about 60% is the rate of materials that are actually collected and recycled, turned into new materials. So it's a pretty good result, but obviously we can do much better on that.
And Rebecca, what happened to soft plastics recycling? We all remember the big hoo-ha a couple of years ago when the Red Cycle company collapsed, and it meant that those storage boxes that everyone was used to at some of the big retailers were no longer accessible.
That's right. Yes, well, work is underway to get another scheme up and running. We're actually working with industry to get a system in place that actually overcomes the difficulties that were inherent in the Red Cycle scheme, where you had materials being collected, but we just didn't have the recycling capacity in terms of the infrastructure to turn those plastics into new materials, into new goods. So they were being stockpiled rather than recycled. There were 2 principal companies who were actually taking those soft plastics that people diligently put in the supermarket bins and actually recycling them. One of them said, we can't do it anymore because there's no market for the products that we produce out the other end. And the other had a fire in their recycling plant, and that put them out of action for close to 2 years. So government, despite what people think, is actually working quite hard to get that infrastructure in place. We have the $1 billion recycling modernisation fund that the federal government provides to help councils and recyclers to put that recycling infrastructure in place. And we've got a whole lot of other initiatives as well. The federal government is actually working on new regulations for packaging, recyclability and sustainability as we speak.
So, Rebecca, most Australians, I guess, recycle through their local council bin collection. What would your message be to viewers watching about how important that is and how much progress may have been made on that front in recent years? I know in my local council, the FOGO bin has been a recent initiative for food and green waste. How much of a difference do those sorts of programs actually make in the scheme of things?
Well, FOGO is a huge initiative and making a real difference. I think about 30% of the population now has access to that. That's food organics and garden organics being collected at the household level. About close to half of what goes into people's red-lidded, their waste bin at the household level, is organic material. And when that ends up in landfill, that generates methane gas, which is a far more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So rule number 1 for householders is to do everything they can to avoid putting organic material, and that really means food waste, into their red bins. if they don't have access to composting systems at home, there are ways that you can collect composting, and there are a number of companies that actually take that composted material or that food waste and turn it into compost. But rule number one, really, recycling is down the list of activities that we all need to engage in. In the first instance, we need to avoid that waste in the first place. And that means being a wise shopper, not buying more than you need, making sure you use the food that you buy so that it doesn't end up being wasted.
Some very sensible tips there, Rebecca Gilling. Really appreciate you making the time for us. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.